Germany is in trouble. For decades, it was the engine of Europe, the continent's most reliable manufacturer, the guardian of economic discipline, and the country everyone else depended on when crises hit. But today, something is going seriously wrong, and the signals are becoming impossible to ignore. The economy is shrinking, major industries are collapsing, borrowing costs are rising, and the government is spending hundreds of billions it doesn't have in a desperate attempt to stop the decline. Germany, the country once famous for fiscal stability and industrial precision, is now facing a crisis that could reshape not only its future, but the future of the entire European Union. And for the first time in modern history, people are asking a shocking question. What if Germany, the backbone of Europe, can no longer carry the weight? To understand how Germany reached this point, we need to look at both the symptoms and the deeper forces tearing at the country's economic foundations. And as we peel back the layers, a troubling picture begins to emerge, one that suggests the crisis unfolding in Germany is not just a temporary recession, but something far more structural and far more dangerous. Because if Germany stumbles, the shock will not stop at its borders. Europe's entire economic system could be at risk. So, what exactly is happening inside Germany? And why are so many warnings flashing red at the same time? On paper, Germany should be one of the most stable economies in the world. It has a wealthy population, a skilled workforce, and some of the most recognizable brands in history, from Mercedes and Porsche to Siemens and BASF. For decades, these companies dominated global markets, generating enormous export surpluses and cementing Germany's reputation as the industrial powerhouse of Europe. But that world is slipping away. Over the last few years, Germany's economic performance has collapsed to levels not seen in decades. Growth has stalled. GDP has shrunk 2 years in a row, and economists now warn that Germany may be entering a prolonged period of stagnation, similar to the lost decades Japan experienced in the 1990s. Industry after industry is flashing signs of distress. Manufacturing output is falling. Factory orders have plunged. Unemployment is creeping upward. Companies are leaving the country for the first time in modern history. But the real breaking point came when Volkswagen, the symbol of German engineering, announced it was considering shutting down factories in Germany itself. That would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. For a country built on manufacturing, this was not just a bad headline, it was a warning shot. And beneath this industrial decline is a deeper, structural crisis that has been decades in the making, one that starts with Germany's unusual economic model. Most rich countries evolve over time, shifting from heavy industry to services, finance, and technology. But Germany never made that transition. Instead, it doubled down on manufacturing. Exports still make up nearly half of the entire German economy, almost 3 times that of the United States. And because these exports were so profitable, Germany became addicted to the enormous surpluses they produced. For decades, this was a winning strategy. Factories ran at full capacity, unemployment was low, economic growth was steady, and Germany accumulated vast wealth. But there was a hidden weakness. Germany's prosperity depended almost entirely on foreign demand. If the world stopped buying German goods, the entire system would be exposed. And starting in 2020, that is exactly what happened. When COVID hit, global trade froze overnight. Borders closed, supply chains collapsed, shipping delays stretched from days to months. For countries with diverse economies, this was painful but manageable. For Germany, it was devastating. Exports fell at the fastest pace since World War II. Manufacturing output collapsed. Car production fell to levels not seen in more than a decade. Germany's economy shrank nearly 5%, wiping out years of gains in a single blow. But this was only the beginning, because just as Germany struggled to recover, the second and far more dangerous shock arrived. Before the war in Ukraine, Germany relied on Russia for more than half of its natural gas. That gas was not just for heating homes, it was the lifeblood of Germany's industrial sector. Steel mills, chemical plants, automotive factories, glass and ceramics, electronics manufacturing, all depended on cheap Russian energy. So when Russia invaded Ukraine and gas imports collapsed by 90%, Germany was not just inconvenienced, it was crippled. Energy prices exploded, electricity costs surged nearly 40% in just months. Factories could not afford to operate, entire industries were forced into temporary shutdowns. chemical giant BASF, one of Germany's most iconic companies, announced it would begin moving production to China and the United States, where energy was cheaper. Other companies followed. Germany's mighty industrial base, once the envy of the world, was suddenly bleeding talent, production, and investment. But even this was not the end of the crisis. Because the very system Germany relied on to survive, the strict rules that kept debt low and investors confident suddenly became the country's biggest obstacle. For decades, Germany operated under one simple principle: never spend more than you earn. This rule became law in 2009 with the introduction of the debt brake, a constitutional requirement that limited government borrowing to nearly zero. It was meant to ensure fiscal discipline forever. It worked, until it didn't. When Germany faced recession, surging unemployment, collapsing exports, and skyrocketing energy costs, the government was legally barred from spending enough to rescue the economy. While the United States injected over $5 trillion of stimulus, Germany could barely move. Factories closed, industry shrank, investment dried up, recession deepened. Germany was stuck in a self-imposed economic straitjacket. Eventually, the pressure became unbearable. In March 2025, Germany did something unimaginable. It suspended the debt brake. Then it announced the largest spending package in the country's modern history, a €500 billion rescue plan designed to rebuild infrastructure, subsidize energy, save key industries, and modernize the economy. It was a bet, the biggest Germany has ever made. If this gamble works, it could restart economic growth, protect jobs, and reindustrialize the country. If it fails, Germany risks something far worse than recession, losing the confidence of global investors. And that is where the real danger lies. Germany isn't just another country in Europe, it is the lender of last resort. When Italy or Greece or Spain face financial panic, Germany steps in behind the scenes to stabilize the system. Investors lend to these countries not because they trust them, but because they trust Germany. That trust is the glue that holds the Eurozone together. But now, for the first time, cracks are appearing. As Germany prepares to borrow hundreds of billions to finance its rescue package, bond yields have surged to their highest level in 40 years. Foreign investors are quietly selling German debt. Rating agencies are issuing warnings. The fear is simple: if Germany starts looking unstable, the entire European financial structure becomes vulnerable. Because without Germany as the anchor, the Eurozone has no fallback, no adult in the room, no safety net, and the consequences could be catastrophic. Even with massive spending, Germany faces long-term challenges that won't go away easily. An aging population. Germany has one of the oldest populations in the world. By 2035, 1 in 3 Germans will be over 60. The tax base is shrinking, and the pension burden is exploding. A declining workforce. Fewer workers means lower output and less money to fund the welfare state. High energy prices that may never fully return to pre-war levels. Germany can no longer rely on cheap gas, and energy-intensive industries may never come back. A slow-moving bureaucracy. Infrastructure projects take years, sometimes decades, to approve. Digitalization lags behind most of Europe. Structural constraints on innovation and investment. While the United States and China outspend Germany on innovation, artificial intelligence, chips, and green technology, German companies are tied up in regulation and high labor costs. These aren't temporary problems, they are systemic, and even €500 billion may not be enough to reverse the decline. What happens if Germany can't fix its economy? The stakes go far beyond its borders. If Germany's growth stalls, if German debt becomes expensive, if investors lose confidence, then the entire European project could come under strain. It would become harder for weaker countries to borrow. Bond markets could panic. A chain reaction could trigger a new Eurozone crisis. And this time, there may be no one left strong enough to stop it. Germany has always been the stabilizer, the country everyone else relied on. But now, Germany itself is showing signs of instability. Europe's anchor is shifting. Germany's €500 billion gamble could work. It could rebuild energy capacity, revive manufacturing, and push the country toward a modern, diversified economy. But it could just as easily fail. If projects run lame, if costs explode, if productivity doesn't rise fast enough, If interest rates keep climbing, then Germany may find itself with higher debt, weaker growth, and fewer tools to respond. The truth is simple and unsettling. Germany is running out of time. The problems it faces are decades in the making, and the solutions will take decades to fix. But the crisis unfolding today is happening right now in real time, and the consequences will be felt far beyond Germany's borders. Europe's strongest economy is standing at a crossroads. One path leads toward renewal and reinvention. The other leads toward decline and perhaps a crisis that could reshape the entire continent. Nobody knows which direction Germany will take, not economists, not politicians, not even Germany itself. But one thing is becoming increasingly clear. Something is going seriously wrong in Germany, and the world is watching what happens next.